So where I'm from in Bethlehem, there's this old house that was built in the early 20th century, and it was the house of the first mayor of Bethlehem. And it's this great old mansion, but it hasn't been inhabited for like 50 years, and it's pretty dilapidated now. And I like to think, and I've liked to think for a while, that Lafayette Greek life is kind of like that. It's this entity that was beautiful for a really long time, and it was a celebrated thing, and it's not now. You know, it's not the 80s anymore. It's not Animal House. We get that the times have changed, and that's for better and for worse. There's a happy medium to be found, and we're not quite there yet. Lafayette celebrated its Greek life back in the day. Greek institutions celebrated each other, and that's where we need to get back to.
The interesting thing, I believe, and I think I don't know if it's ever been totally proven, is why was the fraternity system at one time strongly encouraged by the college?
Historically, one of the things that really drove that for many colleges, and this is not unique to Lafayette, is that fraternities and sororities, or really fraternities and most of the time, provided housing and food. That was a function that they were sort of drafted into doing, a lot of times complicitly with the institution, to say, we can't build housing, you can build housing, you can feed the young men.
At that point in time, I think it was almost 80% of the students at Lafayette belonged to a fraternity after freshman year.
So it was sort of an institutionalized type of thing. And for that reason also, you rushed because that's what you were supposed to be doing at that particular point in time.
It wasn't really that big a decision. I mean, it was such a high percentage of the kids belonged.
In sort of a strange way, it was the thing you did.
I just think I had a desire to be a part of the whole system. Everybody I knew was joining a sorority.
I think the social life, Greek life was a big part of it back then. I think that the party structure and sort of the open access, doesn't matter what organization you're in, everybody's open at any party.
We would start at our house, and then the rest of the campus would kind of congregate around our house, and people literally moved in droves from one house to another. There might have been 2 or 3 other houses on a Wednesday night.
You might start at your fraternity and, dance, have a beer, and then you'd walk to the next one and, try and see how many you could get to in one night.
There were certain fraternities that had certain parties every year. So Phi Psi, which is still here, they had a Christmas party in the first week in September every year.
Zeta Psi was one of my favorite places to hang out, and Kappa's had a croquet party with Zeta Psi every year.
DU, in their old house, they used to have a beach party. They used to bring in mounds and mounds of sand into their living room, and they would bring a big lifeguard chair, and it was a beach party in February or whenever it was.
I would say that my sorority might have a party with a particular fraternity, but then at a certain point in time in the night, it was open up to the public.
Rules were very different. Rules and laws were different in the 80s, and not just at Lafayette, but at every campus in the country.
In the years I was here, in the early years, there really wasn't that tight a restriction on alcohol.
Why it has to be treated differently. The liability issues the college face are enormous, and it can't be the way it was.
The nature of the students at Lafayette has changed, and there aren't as many kids interested in Greek life or that would necessarily be good fits for Greek life as there were back in the day.
Well, it was interesting because I went into school knowing that I didn't want to be part of Greek life, and in fact, I based my college search around smaller Greek life campuses.
a lot of students come into Lafayette with the notion that joining a Greek organization is not that big of a deal for your social life, that you can do it if you want, you don't have to. And I think that's not necessarily the case.
Coming in, Lafayette College said there was about 30 to 33% of students involved in Greek life, but they failed to mention that freshmen couldn't rush. So first off, going into my sophomore year, when it suddenly felt like the entire sophomore body was rushing, that was something I was not at all prepared for.
I think Greek life is seen as a much bigger entity on campus than it is if you look at it just by numbers. And I think that there is a population at Lafayette who doesn't want to be a part of that stereotypical Lafayette experience that they see.
It was pretty strong on not wanting to be a part of something so exclusive in that I felt like I had to make one choice and one group of friends, and that wasn't something I was about. I mean, it's very hard when big events happen and suddenly all my friends, you take Lafayette High, for example, and suddenly all the friends that I, hang out with during the afternoons are suddenly all have these one, big party to go to, this one event to go to.
And kind of the type of person who generally goes here, I think that it is beneficial for your social life to be in a fraternity. I think at Lafayette, it's really, really important to be in Greek life if that's what you want out of your experience. It seems like the social scene at Lafayette is Greek life.
I think a lot of the exclusivity happens because we're kind of forced into a corner by the school. Like, we can't have open parties.
I think that the world that we live in now, where we can't be as public as we once were, we can't drink on Marchfield, we can't drink on our porches, we can't have social events on the quad. We have to do a lot behind closed doors. And I think that lends itself to exclusivity, or at least the appearance of exclusivity.
I think that the Greek life systems as a whole should not only have more open events, but be more inclusive within the community. They hold great community service initiatives sometimes, and I think enabling people outside of that sorority or fraternity to participate would be a great way to become more involved within the campus.
I don't know, because people want to go to these functions that Greek organizations hold, but a lot of the times people don't feel like they belong there. And I think that's something I struggled with freshman year. I didn't go to many Greek functions unless I was invited directly by the people that were hosting it. There's some people in Phi Sci that would think oh, well, it's the people that just don't want to come to anything, they don't want to pay for a ticket. But it's it's different if you went out of your way to talk to these people that might know nothing about Greek life or have these negative stigmas already in their head for whatever reason, and say hey, this is a really fun thing you should come to.
The other thing that really strikes me that has changed from what I understand from the communications that Alex and I have had are that when you are a member of a particular fraternity, at least, I'm not sure about the sororities, you really limit your social activities to members of that fraternity, and that is not at all what it was like when I was there.
I knew that even if I joined one particular sorority, I would have friends in all the other sororities, and it was not exclusive, that I could have sort of my core group and be part of this particular group, but still have wonderful relationships with women in all the other sororities, or women who were independent, because about half of women were independent. So you weren't giving up anything by joining.
I think that when you join a fraternity, you're kind of accepting that non-written social contract that these are the people I'm going to spend the next 3 years with, and these are the people who are going to be my best friends. And it doesn't mean that you can't be friends with other people, but it certainly means that you will be sacrificing your relationship with other people.
In general, people are going to form their groups and they're going to stick with them. It's very hard, trying to break people out of their groups. I think by nature, Greek life is exclusive because I'm going to join my house. These are my friends, this is my community, this is my brotherhood.
From kind of the moment you enter your house, it causes a rift, and it's hard. And you can sort of turn that off, and I definitely hang out with some of my friends in other houses in non-Greek contexts, and it's just like it was before any of us were Greek, but there is that element sometimes, and it's not always the case with every kid, but it definitely exists sometimes.
A lot of times, even in Phi Sci, you see brothers who get way too into the fraternity, and that can be frustrating because they don't understand that like I have friends outside of the fraternity. Like this fraternity is in everything to several of us.
I've really gotten to know some people that I didn't know too well before, just from being on the Interfraternal Council. And I've learned that, these people are just the same as I am. We all share same values and same goals, and we all get along really well.
I think what Lafayette can offer and what I think it's moving towards with DTD coming on and that whole process being opened up again is more of an opportunity for, Greek chapters to, maybe go back to the day where, everyone works together to have a cohesive Greek life. The only way that Greek life can stay around and be, a cohesive part of campus is if it changes. And the school is changing a lot. The school is trying to become more diverse, attract more students, attract a larger student body, and Greek life has to adapt to that.
I've been fortunate this past year to work with the chapter presidents across fraternities and sororities with the help of our supervisor, Dan Ayala, and we were able to have roundtable discussions, and always the first topic of discussion is always how do we make Greek life more inclusive? How do we bridge the gap between the rest of the Lafayette community and us?
It's on us to be kinder to each other, to work on interfraternal relationships, to be more inclusive, and to just paint Greek life in the most positive light that we can.
Even though we're kind of shaded behind these walls of our house and we have this very defined image of being affiliated with our individual organizations, it goes beyond that, and I think we're really excited about the opportunity to meet new people and bring those people into our houses. And again, that comes back to the idea of we want to put ourselves out there. We don't want to be seen as this organization that wants to stick together and stick to ourselves, because we love Lafayette just as much as the next person, and we want to show why we love Lafayette and how our kind of social organizations and those roots can permeate across the entire community. So I absolutely believe that we have the capacity to continue to grow and continue to be kind of held up as leaders of this community, as well as an inclusive group of people as well. It's a tough question. Greek life in Lafayette College in one word.
That's really tough. Is it rolling now? Like,
Yeah. One word.
I say it was developmental.
Yeah, that was
It was
the word, yeah.
developmental.
Connected.
opportunity.
Passionate.
Friendship.
It's fun. Community.
Promising.
It's an experience.
Fun.
Everything.
Gratifying.
Educational.